Live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Cardboard Culture for tonight. We want to thank last week's guest artist extraordinaire, Tim Carroll, for being on our show, where he was able to share his love for taking junk wax era commons and recreating them into masterful works of art. Also want to take the time to acknowledge that yesterday was International Women's Day, and the month of March is also International Women's Month, which kind of leads me into tonight's first female guest on our show, and will not be our last. A hobby and industry veteran who started out in sports journalism for many years, who also PCs Derek Jeter cards, formerly of Topps and Beckett Media, and now she's currently the marketing manager at Culturefly. Please give a warm welcome to the host of CardChat on Wednesday nights, Susan Lulgjuraj, aka Sooz.
Hey there.
Whoa.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
So, Mead, I'll turn it over to you to carry it on.
No worries. So, for Suze and myself, our kids are fast asleep, so we're going to have an uninterrupted meeting of
Good luck. Mine's not sleeping.
Well, uninterrupted talk until they wake up from their night terror, which has been the trend as of late. So again, Suze, thank you for joining. So I want to get right into it. So I want to know, what have you learned from your experiences at starting as a young sports journalist and your stops at Beckett Media and Topps? Can you give us a little bit about that?
Wow. So one thing I learned was that confidence plays a big role. It's you especially when you're starting out and you go into locker rooms and you're going into press boxes. There's all these people with like years of experience, and what makes you stand out, and confidence is really something like important, and it's hard to have that. For me, it was like right in the beginning, because like I said, you have these people who have these long histories of being these like renowned journalists, and it's really nerve-wracking, but working hard and doing a good job and just knowing that I always did the best I could was always very helpful. And that was something that carried with me no matter where I was, whether it was at being a sports writer or working at Topps or working at Beckett or working at Culturefly. Like working hard and knowing that like I'm putting in the work is rewarding for me.
Awesome. And would you say, like, when you were starting out at Beckett and Topps, were you familiar with them beforehand? And like, what was your evolution like there as a career?
Well, I've been a lifelong card collector, so I definitely know who Beckett and Topps were. It started out that I created with my friend Marie. We created a blog back in like the sort of heyday of card blogs around like 2003, 2004. And it was called The Cardboard Problem. Technically, it still exists. It just hasn't been updated in a very long time. And, I was able to take my two passions, writing and card collecting, and put them together. So I'd write about, hunting Derek Jeter cards, going to different card shows, just news popping up. And through that, Chris Olds at Beckett had reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to do some freelance work for us? Because I had the experience of card knowledge. I had the experience of being a sports writer. So I was like, of course, I would love to write for Beckett. I remember as a kid going into like, Barnes and Noble or like Walden Books or something, and like reading through the magazine, and like it was the coolest thing. So I started doing some freelance work for them for a couple of years. And when an opportunity came about, I became their Beckett football, hockey, and basketball editors, and I did that for 2 years. And there was an opportunity at Topps, and couldn't pass that up, and managed to. Luckily, I lived in New York even while working for Beckett. I lived in New York and reached out to people at Topps when I saw a job opening, and was lucky enough. Not lucky, like you said, hard work, but it was. I got the opportunity to work for Topps and for 5 years.
Awesome. Do you actually, on a quick sidebar, do you miss being a sports writer?
Not really. I mean, there's some things I miss about it, obviously, but I don't miss the late nights. I don't miss the sort of like grind of being a sports writer. That that part was difficult. But I miss writing about sports sometimes, which luckily I still have opportunities to write. I have the CardChat newsletter where you talked about, and I still have opportunities to do that. So I don't miss it that much. I also got to do so much. I was a sports writer for 15 or more years. I got to do so much. Like, I covered the Super Bowl. I got to go to the World Series. I covered the World Series when the Phillies won the World Series, and then the next year I covered the World Series when the Yankees beat the Phillies in the World Series. I got to see the Yankees celebrating in the locker room, and even I took them. I'm very professional. Like, I'm very focused. This is what I gotta do. But I took 5 to 10 minutes to just sort of watch Yankees celebrating in the locker room to enjoy that, and then went to go do my work. So I got to meet so many awesome people and do so many great things that I feel like when I left sports journalism, I left having done the things I wanted to do.
That's awesome. And you got to cover a World Series championship of your favorite team. And was Jeter on the team? He was. Yeah.
Oh,
so you got to cover. That's like the holy grail. So you're quite lucky there.
It was awesome.
So I'm going to ask you. Let me ask you this. So basically, when you're working at Topps, so Kent and I did some hunting and we're doing some research, and we found that there's a autograph card of yourself inside that set.
Correct.
So
2017 Allen and Ginter. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, one was, how did you get approached for that, and how many cards did you end up signing? And if you could give us some of the background, like how that came to be.
Yeah. So every year, Topps had put employee autographs into the sets. In this case, it's funny. I'm not special. They were like, we need to put Susan there. What they did was they picked every year. They would pick 10 random names out of a hat, essentially. And those 10 employees got to have their card in Ginter, and my name came up in 2017. And I signed 10 cards that went into the product. I've seen 4 in the wild. I own one, or rather my husband owns one, and the other 3, one was sold on eBay for a lot of money. I was very surprised by. Another sold on Check On My Cards, and then somebody had opened it I saw it on Blowout Cards and was excited because they opened it with their daughter, and their daughter was like, "Oh, how cool is this? That there's a female who works at Topps." So they were excited. They were like, "We're gonna keep this for our collection." I was like, "Oh, cool."
Hey, you know what I mean? Just on a sidebar, I wonder if Tim Carroll has your card. He's building all autograph sets.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's only 10 of them, so.
There's only 10 of them, though, right? There's only 10 of them?
Yeah, I only signed 10 of them that went into product. So they were framed, right? They were like minis that we signed, and they were framed. I have loose minis that are not framed that they gave us maybe 50 or so that I was able to sign for people and hand out like I was a celebrity at one point.
That's really cool.
So just so you know, I'm a celebrity too. So I created my own. We had my own card created. So that's actually my face on a Mario Lemieux's body in the card. So I'm going to send one to you, and I'll sign it. But a lot of people always look at it and be like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's you." And I love to get that reaction out of people.
Mario Lemieux, my prom date. I know it sounds. I have a picture of him from the Sports Card Expo one year. And I'm standing there with him, and I feel it looks like we're at the prom together.
That's awesome. So very quickly, I kind of want to segue. There's something I wanted to bring up. So one of the aspects of our show, for those who have come before and are watching live for the first time, our show is all about diversity and inclusion. So we wanted to bring Sooz on to show that there is diversity and inclusion in our hobby. She's a female who worked in the industry, has a very prominent place in the industry, has worked for 2 prominent companies. So I hope, though, that any women out there are watching, or young ladies or young girls watching, I hope this is like a moment of inspiration for you to show that, hey, you can knock down some barriers and go forward and achieve all your dreams. And you might not be able to see Derek Jeter play again, but maybe some other player on your team will play again. So going back to the list of questions here, so you did answer a couple of things I was going to ask already. So I want to ask one, and you kind of touched on this a couple days ago. So I want to just ask it again. How satisfying was it to edit the content on the back of cards and pick a photo for the card? Now, you can explain that one a bit for the crowd?
Yeah. So the first job I had 2 different jobs while I was at Topps, but the first job I had was essentially picking the images that went onto the cards, which, how amazing, right? You open a pack of cards, the first thing you'd look at is the image. And, that was one of the biggest roles I had with my first job there. And it was awesome. I loved it. I took really great pride in it, like making sure I found like really awesome images. And the fun thing was making my first Derek Jeter card. So when I started at Topps, it was 2014, and I got to, it was the 2014 All-Star. So 2014 update. I started in June, so just to give an idea. So I started in June of 2014, and they were working on Topps update at the time. And obviously the All-Star Games wasn't until July, but immediately following the All-Star Game, like we had to pick images that went into that product. So one of the things was like, okay, like pick these cool All-Star images going into Topps update. So my first Jeter card that I got to create was in 2014 Topps update as from the All-Star Game. So that's always so that's like one of my favorite cards. And that was really exciting. And it's cool because like I got to work on Stadium Club a lot too. So obviously, Stadium Club is known for its imagery. And what was fun was just like, you picking these cards and you find, images that like kind of like moved me, like made me like feel something. And you would put that on the card, and then when that product comes out, it's like waiting to see the reaction of collectors. And it was always really great seeing, collectors felt the same way I did about those images. So that was really exciting. And then when it came to editing the content on the back, it was cool because even I got to learn a lot of really fun facts about players and maybe things I didn't really know before. So, and then every once in a while, I had to jump in and just like maybe write a back or two, which, it's like sneakily, I would always be fun. I'd look at the back of the card and be like, haha, I wrote that, but it was really great. I really enjoyed that role.
It would be an interesting selling and buying ploy. You'd be like, well, I really want that card. Well, I actually wrote the back of that card. Yeah. You need to give it to me. Yeah. There's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, and it'll come out throughout the rest of the show. But always, my one memory of a Topps card that sticks out for life is the Invisible Man card. I know we were talking about this a couple of days ago. For those of you in the crowd who aren't aware, it's a mini frame, I believe, but it's empty. So it's an Invisible Man card, and I wish I had a copy of it because I laughed so hard. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I sold it on eBay at the time. I really wish I had it back. That was one era I would love to, not era of mini card I would love to have. So thank you very much for telling us about your history as a sports writer and working for Topps and Beckett. And don't worry, crowd, we're going to be getting into what Sooz does very soon. But there's a couple of other very, very interesting aspects of Sooz's life that we would like to discuss. I'm going to quickly say hi to Sumo Puppy, who said, what a cool show. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you watching. So I'm going to turn it over to our dear friend Kent. He's going to ask some questions for you as well.
So, Sooz, what are some things you're doing to empower more women in the hobby and to collect, that is, and have you yourself seen an uptick with more women collectors out there?
The funny thing is, like, women, we've always been here, like people say that, but it's like, again, my friend Marina, we started that card blog, more than a decade ago. And right. So, we're best friends and we collect cards. It's not about sort of, I want to say, like, not really so much empowering women, but it's just treating them as you would anybody else. Because I think the biggest issue that women face, that you ask other women about collecting cards, you go to a card show and dealers would talk down to you, or like, they'll look at a Chrome card and be like, this one is shiny. I'm like, oh, is it? Like, I couldn't tell just looking at it. So they'll talk down to you, or instead they'll address like my husband as opposed to talking to me. And he's like, sure. No, she's the one who wants that card. You're talking to the wrong person. So I think the important thing is just to treat like every collector the same, because you don't, it's like they're here collecting cards too. One of the fun things is last year, Sarah Layton, Rich Layton's wife, who has Layton Sports Cards, she created a Facebook group for women, so women who collect cards. And we were talking, her, Ty, who's another card dealer out in California, and I were talking about like getting more women in the hobby, and how to do that, because like we love collecting cards, and like how do we sort of inspire other women to collect cards. And so we were talking about it, and Sarah then took the initiative from that conversation to create this Facebook group. It's called Women in Cards. And it's about 100 people are there now. You know, it keeps growing, and it's just it's a good place to like sit down and talk because there's no worrying about, again, people talking down to you or like sort of like explaining things about cards that we already know. Like there's people in this group who like these people like own card stores, they run like huge group breaks, been collecting for years, and like guys will, you know, dealers or like people at shows will like sit there and be like, oh well, this card, and explain something. They're like, yeah, I know. Like, you don't need to tell me. Like, I'm well aware, or something like that. Like, I know. I literally made that card. Like, I picked the picture that went on that card. So it's really that kind of stuff. And then anytime, like on Twitter, that I see a woman who collects, I just it's like an auto follow. I immediately follow them on Twitter because I always want to know their collections.
This is also Women's History Month, if I'm not mistaken, right, Kent? I believe you mentioned that earlier.
Yes, correct.
So it's very important that we, you know, really think about the equality and fair treatment. And Sooz, you just reminded me of a quick story, if I may, Kent. I'll just tell a quick story. So when I was in university, we used to all watch Sunday football in what was called like the TV. Well, back then the TV room. Like when I went to school, it was like really, really thick TVs. And it was like chained to the wall, and it was so heavy. Anyways, that's a whole different story. And there was this girl that sat in the back, and she wore a 49ers hat. And all the guys were in the front talking about football. And one of the guys was making a reference about Steve Young, and he got the stats wrong. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm not really talking to anyone. And I'm just listening, and I'm sitting in the back, and I'm thinking these guys are totally obnoxious, and I'm just trying to watch the game. And this girl stood up. She goes, excuse me, and she went on like this. I swear to God, it was like a 5-minute exercise on how the stats for Steve Young were working and how he was doing this and all the backup, and they're all like turned back. And then ever since then, she owned the remote control for the TV on Sunday football. They would let her pick the game. They're like, they couldn't touch her. Anything they were trying to challenge her on, she would, nope, you're wrong. It's blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, yes.
You know, so it's a fun story, but like the frustrating thing about that story is like if that was a guy who was quiet sitting in the back of the room who like popped up and was like, by the way, nobody would have been like that impressed or that special. They'd have been like, oh yeah, you're right. And they wouldn't have challenged him every Sunday, you know? So that's the thing I'm talking about. Just like treating everybody the same, like regardless of like gender or anything, just to make them feel welcome.
Yes,
absolutely. So throughout your career, who would you say has been the most influential and inspiring for you to get to where you are today?
You know, back when I worked at the Press of Atlantic City, when I got my first, it was my first full-time sports writing job. I did part-time at the Journal News, but I had won an award for, it's like me bragging right now, but I won an award.
Okay to brag.
It was for the best sports writing portfolio in the state, which was a very big award. Like I beat out people from like the Bergen Record and the Star Ledger. So it was like a really big deal. Those are like big newspapers in the East Coast in New Jersey. And so, you know, you get to go to a dinner and wear a nice dress and get to go. And I took my mother because my mother worked so hard to put me through school. And she worked double shifts, and she works in a hospital. She worked double shifts, and she worked like crazy so that I could go to school and get not have debt after school. Mm-hmm. So like they paid for my college, you know, my parents, but my mom worked so hard, and seeing that work ethic and how hard she worked was really inspiring to me. And that's kind of where I get it from now, where I was talking about before, like, you know, making sure I'm putting in the work and working hard. That's really where it comes from. And that's who's inspired me. So like, yeah, you know, don't get me wrong, like there's wonderful sports writers out there, and like I read good stuff and I'm like, oh man, that makes me want to write something good. But really it's just seeing my mom and how hard she worked to help me get to where I am was really the most inspiring thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. Mm-hmm. So going on to your other, what you're known for is CardChat. So CardChat has been an online staple question and answer period every Wednesday night on your Twitter platform, and it's still going strong to this day. How did that originally start? And can you also let the folks know a little bit more about the CardChat online newsletter and sign up for it?
Yeah, so CardChat started when I was working at Beckett. We were looking at different ways to like engage collectors on social media. Funny enough, like this was like, just trying to do the math. So maybe it's like a little less than 10 years ago, but like it was still growing. Like social media is still growing. The collector base on social media is still growing. And we're just looking for different ways to engage the collectors online. So, I decided to create a Twitter chat called CardChat. So, just every week there would be 6 questions that would run for. I started on Mondays at 7:00, and when I went to Topps, it took a back seat because Mondays at 7:00 turned out to be a really terrible time for me to run CardChat. I'd be walking home from the train in New York. Everybody takes the train into the city. They're in Manhattan, so I'd have to take the train into the city, and I'd be walking home from the train, and I'd get alert on my phone like, "Oh, CardChat starts in 10 minutes." I'm like, "Nope, no, it doesn't," because like I'm not even home yet. So I switched it Wednesdays at 8:00, which was a little bit better time for me and everybody else. It's most other people, but it's really fun because every week, especially now, there's always something happening. Like there's always some crazy news happening in the hobby these days. So, just ask 6 questions of like a different topic every week. It's really great to see the engagement and just like what people are talking about, because the answers are so different. And that's one thing I love about this hobby too, is just how everybody collects for a different reason, and they all have their different opinions and everything. But at the end of the day, it's like we all just collect cards because we love them. And then I created the newsletter because I needed an outlet to write. We talked about, I went from working at Beckett, working at Topps, like immersed in cards.
Right.
And when I went to Culturefly, there's no cards. We don't make trading cards, which is fine because I enjoy it. But I still love cards, and I needed to be involved somehow, more than just on Twitter. So I've used it as a platform to write different like essays and stuff about news, just talking about my time and my experiences in the hobby. And if people want to sign up, you can sign up if you go to my Twitter, which is at Yanxchick, YANXCHICK. You can sign up through the link there on my Twitter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So prior to the pandemic, I know you often visited local card shows in around where you live. So how has the pandemic now affected your ability to collect?
So the card show, where the biggest card show in the area is like at the Westchester County Center, right? And after the National August, it's the East Coast National. Like they've dubbed it that. It's a huge show. You're talking like sometimes there's like 300 tables. It's a really big show.
Okay.
That building is currently being used as a vaccination site. So there is no card show happening in that building for the foreseeable future. So that's been the hard part. 1, 2, I'm also not going anywhere. I wear masks everywhere. I don't go anywhere. I'm very safe. So even if like it was open for card shows, I probably wouldn't be going.
Right.
So the pandemic has forced me to use eBay more, which I don't love using eBay. I generally like to buy my cards in person. So that's why I love card shows. So I've been forced to use eBay a lot more. But it also has allowed me to actually find really cool Facebook groups dedicated to card collecting, and I've made some really cool purchases through them. So I can't complain about it 100% because, that part of it has been actually really good. Like meeting new collectors. Like I literally just like last week joined a new Derek Jeter collector group, and they're so knowledgeable and so welcoming. And I bought some cards this morning off of somebody of like some cards I've been eyeing for like a couple of weeks now. And he's like, "Oh, I have both of them." And I'm like, "Wonderful. Send them to me." So it's that part has been really that part has been a positive.
Awesome. So when I get into your post Topps, post Beckett career, so I want to talk to you about Culturefly from a hobby perspective. It was really interesting when Kent had reached out and said that you were interested in coming on the show. I started doing some research, and I was actually amazed at what Culturefly offers. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show the website, and maybe you can give some background on Culturefly, how you got the Culturefly, and what do they do and what's special about them.
So Culturefly is a subscription box company. They make, different subscription boxes. They're quarterly subscription boxes, so they come out every season essentially for different pop culture licenses. So Friends, The Office, Pusheen, JoJo Siwa, DC Comics, Supernatural, Miraculous Ladybug. Yeah, I could go on and on. They have 15 different subscription boxes with some really cool ones on the way that I can't quite announce just yet. But then also like what you're showing are these sort of one-time collective purchases where these aren't subscription based. These are just things you could just purchase one time and that's it. And that even encompasses even wider breadth of licenses, including Nintendo and different gaming and other like animes. I discovered Culturefly around 2017 or so, I want to say. I was working at New York Comic Con for Topps and walking through the floor, and I love Supernatural. It's my favorite TV show, and I spotted something Supernatural, and I stopped to take a look, and they were creating a Supernatural subscription box, and I said, "Oh my goodness, sign me up!" Like, I didn't even care. Like, just throw my credit card around. I didn't even care what the cost was. I was like, "Sign me up," because there was not a ton of merch for Supernatural out there. So I signed up. They were just debuting the box, so it was for the first box, and I became a customer of theirs. And a couple of years later, I saw they had a job opening for a marketing manager, and I applied and I got the job. And I still get the Supernatural box. I still have it delivered to my door every quarter because I love it so much. And it's funny because they're like, you could get it for free, right? I'm like, no. I want to. It's okay. I'm still gonna pay for it. Don't. I don't know why. I'm still paying for it, and it still comes to my house, and I still love it. And it's fun. It's a fun place to work because it's full of a lot of pop culture nerds and who love different stuff. And even though I'm a card collector, I obviously have other interests. And it's really, the people are really wonderful to work with.
That's awesome. And like I said, I hadn't known about this, so I'm actually really blessed to actually have learned about it. I spent way too much time on this site, just for a record. But I just want to show people, I want to show some people, here's an example of a Supernatural box, right? You see the price point, and I'll actually just do a quick little survey of the images. You can see what kind of stuff you can get in it. This is beyond neat. I am totally enthralled with this, and I'm probably going to look to see what else they have here that I'm going to be interested in purchasing. And they have a really wicked kids section.
Yeah.
For those of you all know, there's JoJo Siwa, who's very famous. She has a box here, so pretty neat site overall. So I'm really glad I learned.
It's selling out there. There's stuff selling out already.
Well, those are old boxes. Once the box sells out, you can't purchase a past box. So those are sold out. So that's winter, fall, and last summer. So currently the spring box is on sale. So you can buy the spring box.
So once they're one and done, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So it kind of has this a little kind of a collectible feel to it because once the box is made, that's it. You can't purchase and then it's sold out. They're not available to purchase anymore. Awesome. And then these are little mini blind collectibles. So the Friends, you would get it, and they're called Smalls, and you get these little figures. They're actually making sports ones, which is actually kind of cool. They're making
nice.
MLB and NFLPA Smalls.
Nice.
So,
this is awesome. And I just wanted to bring this up because one of our good friends, Jeremy, is watching it. So he actually said, good evening to you as well, Sooz. And he said you had me at the office is what he says. So I'm going to show Jeremy. There is an Office small on here. So just so
those came in the boxes, in the first two Office boxes. The Dwight Schrute was in the first one, and then the Michael Scott on sort of Vacation Beach Day, whatever that one is called, was in the second box. And what's cool, it's what makes the Smalls a little different. There's a lot of mini collectible figures out there, is that they come with these little bases that you can actually put them on. So they come with like a little stand with it. So you know how like you get these collectibles and you're like, where do I put it? Where do I say? Well, these come with an actual base so that you can put them like around on your bookcases for ease.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
And just for the general public, you can also get the office box. Anyways,
yeah, that was the first box. It was such a good box. I got that one too.
Very cool.
Since I had this problem at Topps too, where like I would get my paycheck and then like I'm like, I don't know why you just don't keep a portion of it, because I'm gonna spend it on you guys anyway.
That's a really good point, actually. That's a really good point to not want to work for your favorite company. Okay, I'm going to take that away as a life lesson. So, I definitely appreciate that. So I wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to see Culturefly. And the other point of our show is we're not just about trading cards. So the audience will learn in the very near future. We have some other non-trading card folks coming on, but we're going to save that for another day, obviously. But we're learning about other hobbies. The only fear I have is picking up yet another hobby. Anyways, that's a whole different story. I should get back to my question because I completely went off track there because I got distracted with Culturefly. And by the way, can you please tell everyone at your office, I work in advertising and we work on websites often, or that's our bread and butter. This is really well done. It's easy to find information. The customer journey is really smooth. So hats off on the site. I think it's really well done.
They're going to love that. I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to edit that part out and I'm just going to send it to everybody.
For sure.
They'll love it. Thank you.
So this one actually answers one of the questions we had on the list was, do you collect other things other than baseball? So obviously you collect these boxes, but is there anything else you collect?
Yeah, I mean, I collect non-sports cards of like, things from my favorite TV shows, like Supernatural, or like favorite characters. I also collect Supernatural Funkos, so I have like the full line of Supernatural Funkos that have come out, so I collect those as well. Trying to think if there's anything else I collect. No, okay, we can't think of it. I'm trying because I feel like I love to collect things, and I have to. When I was a teenager, I guess I loved to collect the Got Milk ads. Do you remember them where like they were in the magazines and they would have like the celebrities would have like the milk mustache?
Yeah.
I would cut every single one of them out. And I don't know why I love them so much, and I cut them all out. And for one point I had them up on my wall. It was like wallpaper. There were so many different ads. And then eventually I put them into like a binder within those like 8x12 sleeves or whatever size they are. So every once in a while, like something will strike me, and I want to collect it, because I have that, collecting bug, which I'm sure we all understand. So yeah, I do collect random things here and there.
Sooz, wasn't there a hockey player with your last name that you were collecting?
He didn't have my last name. His last name was Palushai.
Oh, slightly off, sorry.
Yeah, I was Aaron Palushai, and it was because he was Albanian. I also collect Albanian players of things.
There you go.
So like there was Aaron Palushai, there was a UFC fighter, Alir Latifi. I just learned that there's an F1 racer with the last name Latifi, which clearly he's Albanian. So I'm like, oh no, his cards are Topps Dynasty cards are only $200 to $300. So I don't know if I want to spend that much money on it. But then there's a couple basketball players who like are from the area of the world where my parents are from, because they're Albanian, but they were born in Montenegro.
Oh yeah.
So, like Nikola Vucevic and Doncic, he's from I think Slovenia, but it's all part of the former Yugoslavia, which is where my parents were born, and then broke up and turned into all these different countries. So there's when I see, like I said, when I see Kevin Kuzmanov, he was Macedonian, so same thing. Like his family has this like background from there, so I collected a ton of his cards. Like he was like my other PC for a long time, and I have so many of his cards. So yeah, every once in a while I'll get a little bug for something else other than Jeter cards.
Nice. I don't want to add to your list, but I'll add to your list. So Ty Domi.
Oh yeah. I was collecting Max Domi's cards too because
the Albanian assassin.
Don't worry. I'm well versed in like the Albanian.
Okay. He was known as the Albanian assassin, right? So
yeah. So I had like I have it still somewhere. I have like Max Domi's like Young Guns card because like why not? So yeah, I was collecting. I like to collect cards of like Albanian players or like people who, like I said, who come from like that area of the world because of my parents' heritage.
Yeah, that is really cool. And it's cool that we got to do a hockey tie-in. So I'm a hockey collector. So, but first and foremost, so any chance, just to see or any chance I can get to inject some hockey content, I'm going to. So there's my little plug, shameless plug. There's collect hockey.
I like hockey too. I'll tell you. So when I first started working at the Press of Atlantic City, one of my biggest roles, like beats that I covered, was actually the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies of the ECHL. And that year was during like the lockout or strike, I forget which one it was, of the NHL. So players were getting pushed down. So we actually had some like really cool players who were playing in the ECHL. And I remember Scott Gomez was playing in the league and like a couple of other like really good players because there was no NHL. And it was really neat because like the level of hockey, even at that level, was like really good because they were, like I said, everybody sort of got pushed back. Like people who should have been in the AHL were in the ECHL, and it was really neat. That was probably one of my favorite beats. I really enjoyed that.
Awesome. So Kent, I'm gonna have to. So Kent and I had to fight over this topic. I'm actually gonna let Kent do it because Kent is the de facto expert. The fact that I didn't know who Dean, what's that guy's name?
Dean Winchester.
Yeah, I didn't know who Dean Winchester was, and that automatically defaulted me to second place. So obviously, clearly, I have no idea about this. So Kent, go into probably what's Suze's favorite part of this whole episode. So I'll let you go that part.
So obviously, we know that you're a big Supernatural fan. At least most people do. So how's the ride been for you for the last 15 seasons that it was on TV? And as a fan, do you feel the last episode was a deserved send-off for the show?
Oh my God, we can spend the whole hour on that last
I know. That's all I'm asking.
I don't know if we have that much time, but so when I first, I'm going to school, it keeps going all the way back to like my first job at the Press of Atlantic City. Right. It was 2004. And I moved out of my parents' house for the first time. I'm living on my own for the first time. I don't have a TV. Who needs TV, right? I don't need a TV. And then I see this show was coming on, premiering Supernatural. And I'm like, this looks really good. And I'm a fan of Jensen Ackles. I really liked him. I liked him on Days of Our Lives, and then he was on Dark Angel. I was a big fan of that show. And I'm like, I want to watch this show. So I specifically bought a TV and got cable for this show. And I don't like horror. And that's the funny, I don't like horror movies. I don't watch them. I don't enjoy them. And yet, I watched this first episode and I loved it. And I kept watching it, and I absolutely loved this show. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the writing was great. I loved the storylines, like the relationship with the family and the brothers, like was so great. And I am a day oneer watching Supernatural. Like I didn't pick it up years later. I've been watching Supernatural for day one.
Yep, me too.
So, yeah, yay! So, like these people, and I have grown with these people. I spent 15 years with these people, you know, and they got married and had families. I got married and had family. Like, I feel like we're friends. Obviously, we're not, but like, 15 years. I hated the last episode. I hated it. I cried like a baby. I cried for longer than I should have, and I hated that episode so much. So that's how I feel about the last episode. I still love it. Still 15 years of, I'm going to pretend that our last episode didn't happen. For me, the second to last episode was the proper ending.
Yeah, I would agree with you because the last episode was kind of deflating for me. It was almost like the last episode of Game of Thrones.
I read the books, but I didn't watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was very not the way I thought it would go out. But yeah. So speaking of the tie-in with Supernatural, can you let the audience know about the Jeffrey Dean Morgan?
Oh yeah, so the cool thing was, so when I worked at Topps, I would also help out on occasion with like different signings. The first signing I ever did was with Don Mattingly, huge Yankees fan, like best thing. So what's gonna top Don Mattingly, right? So we got the license for The Walking Dead, and I was like, hey, if we ever get Jeffrey Dean Morgan to sign, call me. Like I'm doing that signing. I'm calling dibs. I don't care. I'm doing it. And sure enough, they're like, hey, are you busy tomorrow? I'm like, no, what's up? And they're like, oh, Jeffrey Dean Morgan signing. I'm like, what? excuse me. So then I went and I got to do a signing with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, spent like an hour and a half, signing cards. And he was so cool. Like he was like really sweet and really nice. And we like got to like chat a lot, like, and it was just like it was really cool and down to earth. I really enjoyed it. That was definitely the coolest, like one of the coolest moments I had at Topps was doing that signing. And I took a picture, and I never ever like I'm not the type of person who's like, can we take a picture? That's not me. Like I won't do that. I'm like, I need to be super professional. And
Right.
I'm like, can we take a picture, please? So he was gracious enough. It was like he took a picture and I posted it to my Instagram. So if anybody wants to see it on my Instagram, you could scroll through to whatever year it was. And I posted it, and the person who worked the licensing at the time was like, he's like, that's the biggest smile I've ever seen on your face. Probably. So that was really cool.
That is really awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. That's really awesome.
You should probably tell the audience your story about how your son got his name, which is how this.
Yeah, my son's name is Dean. So if you watch Supernatural, like his name is Dean, and we were gonna name him. His initials were gonna be DG. Like in my husband's family, they have the initials of DG going back like 7 generations, something like that. So we wanted a D name. And we were trying to come up with D names, and we were watching Supernatural, and jokingly I was like, Dean, ha ha ha, like I'm pregnant, and like we're binge watching Supernatural. And then we're like, oh, wait a second. It's actually kind of a nice name. Like, and it ended up sticking. Like we put it on the maybe list, and it stuck all the way to the end to like the definite list. So he's not exactly named after Dean Winchester, more like inspired by Dean Winchester.
Very good. Very good. So most people also know that you PC Derek Jeter. So the question is, how many Jeter cards do you have in your PC, and which would you say are your top three Jeter cards in your PC?
So that's a good question. I'm not done. I'm looking. Like you see me. I'm looking behind my computer because I have a lot of Jeter cards that need to be sorted and cataloged behind my computer right now. Of what I know I have, it's probably over 2,500 different Jeter cards. But like I said, there's a lot of sorting and cataloging, so it's probably closer to like 27, maybe is my guess. 2,700.
Whoa! Wow.
Maybe. Because within my sorting and cataloging, I've cataloged what I know of roughly 2,300. Then I have a whole binder full of these other cards that are like the moments and milestone cards. I don't know if you remember those for the film. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of those, and I just didn't add them to my list because there was just too many of them. I haven't cataloged any of my jersey cards, which I have a bunch of. So and then like I said, then I just have a whole bunch that I just haven't gone to yet. So I'm gonna say probably around 2,700.
That's amazing. All different. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm not counting doubles. That's a whole nother box. And then top 3 cards. Mm-hmm. So definitely making the list is the 2014 Topps Update All-Star Game card, which I don't have in front of me, but it's probably in the box that this laptop is sitting on. So I'll to get that one right now. That's definitely up in the top 3 because again, I made that card. And in school, one year for like Valentine's Day or anniversary, my husband bought me the clear parallel of that card.
Wow.
So that is high on the list because, he knows how much what that card means to me, and bought me one of the various variations of it. So that's really cool. And then I have a card sitting next to me. This is Fleer Tradition, This Day in History autograph card. And what's cool about it is like you can see like, oh, this day in history, and it's Derek Jeter. This is authentic signature down here. Nope, down here. Mm-hmm. And the date on the card is July 11th, and I love it because that's my birthday.
Wow.
And I think that's cool because it says you have just received the day in history card that was personally autographed by Derek Jeter. And on July 11th, 2001, he became the first ever New York Yankee to be named the All-Star Game's most valuable player. I also turned 21 that day.
Nice.
Sure, I remember it.
That is really neat. That is really neat. So speaking of how you met Jeffrey Dean Morgan through your career, in your career as well, did you ever get a chance to meet Derek Jeter?
I did. So I got to, at least 3 times I've got to interview him. And one of them, I remember it was kind of silly. I was like sitting there with like my little notepad, and I'm like scribbling away, writing stuff. I think it was one of the All-Star games. I forget which one. Oh, the All-Star game in Yankee Stadium. That was the one.
Oh, there you go.
The last year Yankee Stadium. But I'm sitting there with my little notepad, and I had to sneeze. And I'm like, and I'm trying so hard to keep it in, because it's like there's a bunch of people around us, and I'm like my little sneeze. I'm like, like, and he kind of peeks over. I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm not trying to, like, I don't want people looking at me, and I'm over there, and I'm still writing my little notes, and I sneeze again. I'm like, like little sneeze, and he's like, oh, he stops what he's saying. He's like, oh, bless you, and I'm like, thank you. I'm gonna go pass out now, but okay. So that's my silly Jeter story.
So I'm going to do a quick, sorry, I talked over you. I apologize. So I'm going to do a quick little segue here. Is for the record, I'm a Blue Jays fan. I'm not allowed to like the Yankees, but I respect your Jeter story. So I'm going to get back out of the conversation and let Kent own this.
So being the Yankees fan that you are, the Yankees have stars like Judge, Glaber, and Gio Stanton. There's this new wonder kid that everybody's talking about, which is Jason Dominguez. So what's your take on this Dominguez kid, and do you think that he's the real deal and worth all the hype and money that the hobby is pouring into this?
I have no idea. I have no clue. I'm not very good at prospecting. We've been going through like our cards. We just recently, my husband and I, we just recently moved, and we're going through our cards, and every once in a while it's like, why do you have a bunch of cards? It's like there's like some random player. I'm like, I thought maybe he would be big. Nope. He was not. I have no idea. I'm not good at prospecting. Do I hope? I certainly hope so. I do think that even the leagues and like scouts and like analytics have all done a much better job over the years. So generally at this point, when somebody has a lot of hype behind them, it's usually warranted. So like you look over the last couple of years of like some of the like the top names of like Juan Soto comes to mind. Or like I'm just trying to think, because like I'm going through the list in my head of like all these Bowman players, because like you find them in Bowman all the time, right?
Right, for sure.
Like, and they end up being like these, or like Tatis is a great example, and it's warranted. So I think that the people whose job it is to analyze these prospects and say like, oh, they're going to do X, Y, Z. I think that like their tools have gotten a lot better as well. So if they're saying, I think the list just came out today too for MLB like draft like pipeline, and he was number 1 on the list. I think if they're saying this is who he is, then I'm okay, cool. That's who he is, Well, Brian, sorry, in chat somebody was like Brian Taylor. Well, he got into a bar fight. I can't control that. Like that was no good. But it's crazy. I'm not gonna lie, it's crazy. The money people are pouring in, because like you look at it and you're like, wow, he hasn't proven himself yet in any level, So it's really crazy. And I think people are like hoping for like the next Mike Trout, because I got to see Mike Trout when he was in high school because I worked in South Jersey.
Oh, sure, right. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So I got to see, I saw him play basketball. I never saw him play baseball. I saw him play basketball. Okay. Like I covered his basketball games. He was a fantastic basketball player too, because he was the most athletic person on the court. But I knew who he was, and it was really cool because like he was this really fantastic player. And I went out to Cedar Rapids, like when his first year of A-ball, and I was there for a week and did this whole big story on him. So I bought one of his Bowman Sterling autographed cards when it came out for $25. And at the time, I'm like, I'm spending $25 for this card of a guy who knows how he's going to be. And now I wish I bought 85 of them at $25. But I think that's what people are sort of hoping for. Like cards are going crazy right now. Like it's just shooting upwards. And I think people are hoping that this, and I use the term investment of what they're putting in now, is going to create greater returns later, because if he does turn into a Mike Trout, it's going to be crazy. So like you're spending $300, $400, $500, even a couple $1,000. That's going to be nothing compared to what the cards could be potentially worth in 5 years.
Well, and the thing is too, the Yankee fan base is a pretty rabid fan base and a very large, and it's I also want to say somewhat semi-global too for the Yankees. So the fact that this kid who hasn't even played professional ball yet, and there's so much speculation on him and the amount of money that's being spent on him. Like I think there was an interview that they did with him, and he was surprised at how much his cards were going for.
Yeah. I think that's interesting when they ask players about it, because I don't think the players realize initially, like, oh, my cards are like are going for like how much money, and because like they get paid to sign these cards, and what they're getting to get paid to sign these cards isn't really close to what people are paying for these signed cards. So I think that's the part that's really interesting. So especially when these players see that, they're probably like, wait a second, like I got paid how much, and if I did this, like I could have gone how much, you know? So I think there's a little, the secondary market versus what they're getting paid is probably like, if it's like a scale, it's like this, you know, like it's not very equal.
For sure, for sure.
I have to say though, your PC is a very fortunate one of a player like Derek Jeter. So I don't think you have to worry about your PC going down in value. If anything, it's going to go up in value. And I'm sure you have some of his rookie cards. So I think you're going to be more than well set. If I had to pick, and I'm just picking from a pure baseball fantasy point of view, I'd rather have a Jeter than a Trout. But that's just me.
I mean, I have them all, so I'm not complaining that much. But I mean, I started collecting Jeter cards because like he was my favorite player. It was 1996. I'm 16 years old. You know, here comes this like wonderful, like well-spoken, not even, but just like, you know, you do all the right things to say to like get people excited. He was like, you know, and he was young too, you know, and that was the thing. I think it was like he was what, 21 years old at the time. So he was like this young guy who comes and he's just like handled and like was so mature for his age and was doing everything. And then he goes on to win unanimously Rookie of the Year, and they win the World Series. Like as a Yankee fan, like how can you not fall in love with him, you know? So it's like, and how do I express my fandom? I collect baseball cards. So that to me, that was just like the next logical step. Like, yeah, I have to collect his baseball cards. I spent like, especially like the year after 97, because like, again, at 16 years old, I don't have that much money. But then I got like my first job that summer, and I'm sitting there writing out checks for eBay. Like I'm buying lots of cards, like of Jeter cards, and I'm just like signing checks and sending them out and getting them in the mail. Now you have people like, I had to wait 3 days to get my card. I'm like, you know how long I used to have to wait? A check had to clear, and I had to wait for my check to cash, and then I'll get my card. Like it would be a month later by the time I got my cards.
I had one. So
I'm that old, by the way.
I had two quick comments, but first of all, I'm sure this person is Rich Barone, so it can only be Rich Barone. So he always wants to convert me to a Yankees fan. And he's the one I made the Brian Taylor comment. And for the record, Richie, if this is you, because you says Facebook user, but if it is you, no, that's not going to happen. I respect the Mantle comment for sure. And I had a point I was going to bring up, and now I've forgotten what it was. I'm sure it'll come back. But I respect the Jeter collection. I think it's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you have the passion of collecting cards for that. So totally admire that. When my point comes back to me, I will come back to it. So I'll let.
It happens to me all the time.
So, Susan, when you were covering Jeter as a sports journalist, did you also find that he was, despite his popularity, did you also find him to be a fairly approachable and gracious signer at the ballparks?
You know, I never asked him for an autograph, so I couldn't.
Just from your viewpoint, when you were,
you know, so I used to have season tickets to the Yankees, so I spent a lot of time at Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
Yeah. So one year I went to 60 baseball games, which meant I also went on the road to watch them play. I've been to, I don't know what they call it anymore. It was not where did the Blue Jays play again?
Skydome.
Oh yeah, I was like, that's what I know. I knew it as the Skydome, so I was like, I don't know what they call it anymore. You know, he would say, from what I remember, he would sign for people around like the edges of the ballpark,
Yeah.
But where I sat in the bleachers. Nobody ever came to the bleachers to sign autographs, so I couldn't speak to that.
I remember the comment I was going to make. So the only time I really wanted the Yankees to win was when somebody, and you can correct me because you're the Yankees fan, so you'll know. I believe they were down 3-0 to the Red Sox. And did they come back to win? Or was it the other way around? I can't remember.
It was the other way around.
The way around? I remember.
You really have to bring that up. Like, was that necessary?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I blame Richie Barone who signed in because he has that effect on me to bring up. So anything to go against him, I'll do it. But that World Series was like one of the ones that got me back into baseball. So it's actually that World Series that got me back into baseball. So it's interesting. Joe Perot is talking about now Jeter collectors are cashing checks. Yes, they are. And oh god, really, Richie?
That's Richie for sure. That's Richie for sure.
I'm trying to be professional, Richie, and I'm trying to make this really family. Don't get me going on the wrong side. No, I really don't want to. And he just corroborated that Jeter did sign a lot at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Richie, this is a show about diversity and inclusion. There's no fighting, just so you know. Anyways, just want to put that on record since it's recorded. Anyways, I'll let Kent continue to ask you the questions.
So is it safe to say that your young son will follow in his footsteps and be a Yankee fan and a card collector just like you? Or will he be swayed to the dark side and follow the Rangers like his father?
I'm of the feeling of like he can root for who he wants.
Sure.
But he knows the Yankees players because we watch so many Yankee games because they're here. So like he's like Gio, Lou.
Oh, nice.
Watches it, and then he's like he thought it was very funny when I made a joke about Labor Day and I said Glaber Day and he thought that was hilarious because he knows who Glaber Torres is. And then we were actually at the MLB store in New York City over the weekend. And we're going through, and he wanted Cubs stuff. And he's like, the Cubs. I'm like, first of all, how do you even know who the Cubs are? And secondly, why? Why the Cubs? But he does like baseball. But he even says like he has Rangers shirts. So like I don't mind. Like I just want him to. There's just two teams he's not allowed to root for. Other than that, he's allowed to pick whatever team he wants.
My son is. I'm a Leafs fan, right? Yeah, shoot me. I know. I think they lost tonight. I don't even want to look at the score. They lost to the Jets. Anyway, that's a different story. He is. I'm a Leafs fan. I only watch the games when the Leafs are on. And my youngest, he's 4 years. He was 3 years old. Saw Henrik Lundqvist playing on the highlights. Saw it once. The kid is infatuated. He's like, Henrik Lundqvist on today. Henrik Lundqvist is on today. And when I told him Henrik Lundqvist he's no longer with the Rangers and is with what's supposed to be the Capitals. And I told him like, oh well, no, he's not feeling well, and he actually was upset. I'm like, oh, it's okay. He's gonna pull through. He's gonna pull through. But then I'm like, I'm rooting for a former Rangers player. I know he's hurt, so I shouldn't be too mad. But my son loves Henrik Lundqvist. I cannot figure out. But I support it. I bought him a figure, a card, so I'll support that. Sorry, you were going to say your podcast.
I give him so I give my son cards too. Like when we're opening cards, he'll be like, "Who's that?" And then he loves Buster Posey because like we used to play a baseball trivia game on the Amazon Alexa, and Buster Posey was the host of it. So he'd be like, "Hi, I'm Buster Posey." So he's like Buster Posey. So he loves Buster Posey. So anytime we pull a Buster Posey card, we give it to him. So I think he'll like cards because when we go to the card shop, he wants to buy cards, but generally they're like he wants to buy the Pokemon cards. Mm-hmm. So, but he likes Pokemon too. But he has his own little collection. It's funny. He can tell you who's on the card, so he'll know. And he's only 4, so he doesn't really read. But we open old cards too. So he'll have he has a Tom Gordon card, and he has a Dean Palmer card because his name is Dean, and he'll show you his cards, and he'll tell you exactly who everybody is on the cards.
You know what's neat is, so I did this with my kids. Sorry, this is completely segue, but it's cool because I'm talking to another collector parent, so that's awesome. I got those letter cards, and I created my son's name out of letter cards. And the other thing is I would get the cards that have big block letters on it. You know those
in the name, Topps in the name.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah, so I would give that to him and I'd be like, hey, take a look at it. And he would learn, like actually go through and trace the letters and learn that way. So it was
cool.
a way for me to, so it's a neat way to interface with kids. And one other quick story is, and you're reminding me of this, and I'm so thankful you are, because these are good memories of the hobby, is we had so it's actually our friend Jeremy, who's on tonight, Sports Card Live. We share a booth at the Sports Card Expo, and there's a family that used to come by, and the kid would be really good at math. So he would sit there and just bust out crazy math and pick out letter cards and number cards in our cases. It was awesome. Anyway, I'm getting a little too nostalgic because pandemic has taken that all away from me. So can't wait for that to happen again. And we have Caitlin Chamberlain has also chimed in. And so you're aware, Sooz, I met Caitlin about, I think, 2-3 weeks ago, and she actually has a Facebook group that's dedicated to children who collect cards. So she does fun things. Yeah. So I was really impressed with that. So hopefully in the next few months or so, we'll get her on to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to follow that group too. That's cool.
There is a point from here, Joe, our good buddy Joe. He was there in 2001 for Jarek's iconic toss, probably the most significant baseball play I've ever witnessed in person. Not a happy moment for an A's fan, but an epic moment in baseball history.
That's awesome. It was during the time I had season tickets, and I remember that comeback versus the A's. That was crazy. It was insane. Like, I've never heard the stadium that loud before. It was so crazy. Actually, the loudest I ever heard the stadium was probably when Aaron Boone hit that walk-off home run.
Oh, right. Yes.
So we're coming up on the hour mark, and I have one last question, if that's okay, Sooz.
Yeah, it's okay.
So at the end of every show, we ask this question, and just so everyone in the crowd's aware, we actually told Sooz about this question, so I wanted you to take away and think about it. However, you did hint at it earlier in our episode. I think it might be the same answer, but I'll ask you anyways. I want to know what inspires you as a person in your hobby and everything you do in life.
Yeah, I thought about this because you just told me this, and I thought about this question, and like, I get inspired in a lot of different ways. Like, I really do. Like, and it could be about anything. So like one of the things that inspires me is actually like my son. He inspires me. Like he's 4 years old, and just seeing him learn and grow and pick up different things and concepts, like, that's inspiring to me, because it's also just a reminder of the same thing. Like, I could always like learn and grow and do things, and just seeing like the challenges he faces that he doesn't even realize, it's like he doesn't even know some of the challenges he faces, and he still is able to push through it. But then like I get inspired by like reading something wonderful, and I'm like, man, I want to write something really wonderful. So I find things in everyday life, or just things that I'm doing normally, that they generally just inspire me to like either be better or do something new and different, learn something new. Like over the pandemic, the show Ted Lasso, I watched that inspired me. Like, I'm watching Ted Lasso, and I'm like I want to be like Ted Lasso. But like, it's like I'm watching this, and it's just I'm able to see really fun things and like really enjoy like small moments, and all of it sort of is kind of like, it's like encompassing. And I just feel like that it's not one thing or one moment, it's a lot of things.
That's an awesome answer, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I wanted to also, and Kent and I both echo this. We're so blessed to have had you on our show. I'm glad to have met you, and I can't wait to talk to you again in the future. We have you on our show again. We'll talk about some other things. Maybe it'll be Culturefly memorabilia that I might buy, and we'll talk about that instead.
Well, I appreciate it, because I literally got to talk about all of my favorite things in the last hour, so it was pretty cool. I appreciate it.
Hopefully one day we could all meet up in person again.
Yay! That would be
That would be awesome. So just as a parting word, so I hope, for those of you who are watching, those of you who will watch when this is recorded on YouTube, I really hope you take some inspiration and motivation to do good in the hobby. Really take passion and pride in what you do. And if you're a Derek Jeter collector, or in my case, a Wendell Clark collector, in Kent's case, who's your latest now?
I'm collecting soccer now. So it's probably like Holland, but he's getting up there in price right now.
Okay, so Howland, collector. So keep doing what you do. Enjoy what you do. Follow Sooz on Twitter. Her handle is here. And just for everyone who's aware, might be familiar with Chris Justice of Cards Infinity. He's going to be with us next week. He's another breaker. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much, Sooz. I really appreciate you coming on and just hang out in the background. I'm just going to end the broadcast shortly.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Sorry, one little parting shot. Caitlin wanted to say you're awesome, so I wanted to make sure I pull that out.